Good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast. Hope everybody's doing well. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to all. I am Brent Hubbs, along with Austin Price, Grant Ramey, and Rob Lewis. Glad to have you along with us on this Christmas week. Plenty to get to in the world of Tennessee football, from the transfer portal, recruiting, current team, basketball team. Lots of things to get to. And don't forget to be sure and click that like button on YouTube. Get us up to 500 likes. If you're not a subscriber to our YouTube channel, would suggest that you do that. We throw a lot of content up there for you. You'll get that notification when it happens. And obviously, we want you on the General's Quarters and at volquest.com, where we bring you the very latest on everything going on in the world of Tennessee athletics. All right, guys, lots to get to. I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. Let's start first with some hoops action from this Arizona game, the late night game, Saturday night. Tennessee loses 75-70 to Arizona. Rob, I'll start with you. What's your takeaway from that game, and kind of set the course for Tennessee with conference play starting next week?
I mean, brilliant defensively. Just, I mean, as it's not sexy to talk about, but they're a fantastic defensive team. And Grant, I'd like to hear your opinion. They can't beat teams like Arizona with the offense they have now on the road. I mean, they can beat 75-80% of the teams on their schedule. They have to be better offensively. They had Zakai played well. Olivier played well offensively. Everybody else was pretty much a no-show.
I think the question is how many points you have to score every night with this defense to win those kind of games. I agree with this offense. They're not winning at Arizona on the road in college basketball, with a home whistle being what it is. In college basketball, Julian Phillips, I think over his last two games, he has 8 points. I think he's 1 for 15 from the field. Like, they got to get more from him. He's got to get to the foul, and I think he's made more foul shots than his teammates have attempted this season. So if he's not getting to the foul line, that's a problem. Santi's not shooting it particularly well right now. I don't know if that shoulder's still bothering him. They need to get him fixed. Like, they don't really have that go-to scorer right now. It's great when Zakai can give you 21 and Olivier can give you 18, but you can't rely on that every night. And they got to, if Josiah's ever going to help them, maybe he can help them down the road and score it. But they got to find some more offense, because, yeah, the defense is elite, but it's going to be hard to hold teams to 50, 55 points every single night.
Well, and speaking of Josiah, Austin, I know you had him on Vol Club Confidential. He was really excited about where he was, felt like he was good to go, with the knee, but the knee's clearly giving him problems and concerns. At what point, if you're Tennessee, do you just look at it and say, okay, if we get 10 minutes, it's a luxury. If we get him once a week, maybe it's a luxury. Are they to that point in trying to sort of figure out who this team is moving forward?
Rob, I don't know how you feel. I just don't think there's cause for panic until the 28th. If he doesn't suit up for the Ole Miss game, then all of a sudden, to me, that's more of a eye opener. I mean, I get you'd love to have him for Arizona, but ultimately, you really need him for conference play. And so, was this just, hey, let's hold him out and get him as healthy as we can get him for the stretch run of conference play? Or is it more like what Hubbs is kind of alluding to the point where, like, hey, we'll just kind of take him and put him in spots, and if we have him, we have him. If we don't, we don't. If that's the case, then, it's really hard to kind of count on anything at this point.
I mean, me personally, and he has not told me this, but I mean, reading between the lines, I think Rick Barnes is like, hey, train's leaving the station. This is our team. If we get him back, that's great. But I don't think Rick Barnes is counting on him right now.
And if that's the case, Grant, how does that change? I mean, what's on the forefront of development for this team? Because it changes, obviously, some of the things they can do in manipulating lineup, right? Going small, playing Josiah at the 4. How does that change? Who has to really evolve and develop quickly if your focus is like, hey, we just can't – we don't think we can count on him right now because of where that knee is?
I think it's Julian. I think Julian Phillips has to play that bigger role, and he's shown at times that he can be that guy and go out and score 25 against USC like he did in the Bahamas, and the next day he had 4 against Kansas, and maybe he was fatigued at that point, and maybe he's hit a little bit of a freshman wall, but just kind of, taking Josiah out of the picture and putting somebody in, I think you plug in Julian because he's got a similar frame. He can do that small ball 4, I guess, if he had to, if they can make some progress with him there. But he's just going to have to be better. He's going to have to drive. He's going to have to draw that contact in the paint. He can't fade away from a 7-footer like he did against Arizona and expect to get calls like that. I mean, he's got to do more He's got to be more aggressive. He's got to be a little bit more of somebody that they can rely on to produce and not go missing against teams like Maryland and Arizona. You need more from Jonas Idu. You need more from your post if you're missing Josiah game in and game out from here. So I don't know if it's any one person, if it's a team effort, but I think I would start with Julian.
How challenging is a basketball team that doesn't have a go-to guy, Rob?
I mean, I think it's pretty challenging, Hubbard. I mean, and I don't just mean points. I mean, when you don't have a guy that can go get 20. I mean, when you look at that game the other night, when you don't have a big guy that you can think can get, 10, 11, 12, 13 rebounds in a game, like what Tennessee, like what Tennessee was seeing at Arizona. I mean, it really is, as we get deeper into this season. I mean, they have to do everything by committee. And I mean, I'm not trying to be, the sky's falling, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. I just, when you're talking about their peers, and their peers are other top 10 basketball teams, I think Tennessee has to really has to spread it around, whether you're talking about scoring, whether you're talking about defense, whether you're talking about rebounding. And you've got to have a lot of guys show up every night to beat, Kentucky, Arkansas, Auburn, Arizona. And it's just, if you have one or two guys have an off night, when you have a team that's built that way, it's tough.
Are you guys in Austin jumping here too? I mean, you watched him play, and you've seen him and everything as well. I mean, are you guys surprised that Tyreek Key's not been more effective, or was that a little bit of kind of, I don't want to say stepping out over his skis, but he had that early game or two where he was really good. Are you surprised that he's not been more of a scorer for Tennessee to this point?
Yes, just based off the fact that he came in there against Gonzaga down in Texas, and looked like John Starks coming, literally and figuratively, in a big game against the Celtics in the early '90s. I mean, I'm surprised that he's not been more consistent. To me, it's been more kind of sporadic. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't know how the other guys feel that are around it every day, but just watching it, from afar, definitely surprised.
I mean, I felt like over the summer you hear so many good things about so many different players that you kind of want to see it to believe it, and that's kind of what I took to Texas when we went down there for that Gonzaga exhibition. And the way he played against Gonzaga, against that competition, I thought, okay, it's legit. Everything that we heard about him, he did the same thing in the second half against Michigan State in that close scrimmage, according to what everybody was talking about. So at that point, yeah, I believed it. But since then, no, we haven't seen it consistently. I mean, that turnover he had at Arizona the other night in the second half, where he's trying to throw it back out to Urosh, and Urosh isn't even looking at him. He's going back to the middle of the floor. You can't have that turnover in that moment from a veteran, from a guy that's as experienced as he is, has been around as long as he has. So, yeah, he's going to have to be a bigger piece of the pie, a more consistent piece of it, somebody that you can count on to score it a little bit and also just to take care of the basketball.
To make light of it, Hubs, let's face it. I mean, that game in Texas, that was in October. Grant was someone else then. Ever since he came over, Tyreek Key, not the same guy.
Rob, you said this earlier that the sky's not falling. Okay, let's be really careful here about this basketball team. We can pick tons of scabs, and I've done that for 8 minutes on this podcast here of picking concerns and everything. They're a really good defensive team that's going to keep them in a bunch of games. What's the ceiling for this offense? I mean, how much do you think as they go along they're going to grow? And would you rather have a team? If you're a coach, would you rather have a team that's solid defensively, night in and night out, the way this team consistently has been since Colorado, and a team that's got to build offensively, or would you rather have a high-scoring team that you're trying to figure out how to play defense as the season goes along?
Well, I mean, I think to win 20, 22, 24 games, I'd rather have a really good defensive team. I mean, to win it all, or to win 30-something games, you better have both. I mean, it's just I don't want to say defense is easy, but I mean, you don't need as much skill to play. I mean, if you got a bunch of long athletes that will play hard, you can have a good defensive team. I think what's holding them back more than anything offensively, this may be oversimplifying it. Santi's shooting 27% from three. I mean, he was the best 3-point shooter in the SEC last year. I mean, is he hurt? I almost have to think that he's not healthy. I mean, he was 1 for 7 at Arizona. He was 2 of 12 for the floor overall. I have to think the shoulders hurt. I mean, bother him. I mean, he is shooting worse from 3 right now than he has at any point in his career. When you would expect that it would be the opposite. And if he's shooting 40% from 3, if he hits 4 3-pointers the other night instead of 1, Tennessee wins that game.
Yeah, he's clearly got to shoot the basketball better. How much can Tennessee build off what Kumwa did, Grant, and how important is that for them to maybe become more of an inside-out team, right? Where they can, I'm not saying they're going to throw it back to the basket in there, but he can play in that 15-foot space, and they can create some inside-out action instead of living and dying by the 3 ball. How important was that, and how much does Tennessee need him to build off Saturday night?
It's huge because he has to be that kind of player for Tennessee. I mean, when he got hurt at South Carolina last year, he was the most productive big man they had on roster. He was their best post player by a large margin. And you wondered after that injury if he's going to come back and be able to kind of pick up where he left off. And for him, my personal knock on Olivier the past 3 years is when he has those huge games, it's against the lesser teams on the schedule. For him to do that against Arizona on the road, against a really, really good front court that Arizona has, I think that's huge. And if he can be that guy that you can throw the ball down there and get a bucket out of him, that could, I don't know if he's ever going to be your go-to scorer, but that alleviates so much stuff for the guards on the outside to space the floor better, to get those kickouts to play inside out the way that Rick wants to. If he could do that consistently, I'm not talking about score 18 a night, but just be productive. I think that changes tons for him. I think it changes tons for this offense to be able to play inside out and get some of those kick-out threes that they're going to have down the road.
Rob, does Ziegler go back to the starting lineup, or do you not get too caught up in one game?
I don't think he will. And to me, it's almost like Rick just thinks that's a jinx. I think he might go in like, if there's a dead ball at, 15 seconds into the game, Zakai, get in there. But I think his minutes are going to look like starter minutes. But just after that Colorado game, Grant was there. Rick was as mad as a guy after that Colorado game as I can remember him being at any single player. And just, like I said, maybe like a rabbit's foot in his pocket. I think he's keeping Zakai on the bench. I mean, even he may play 37 minutes in a game, but I think he will play them coming off the bench.
To put this in Andy Griffith terms, so basically what you're telling me is nobody's riding a horse east to west or west to east or any of that stuff.
A rider in black on a white horse at midnight.
Right, Rob Lewis?
Totally do not get any of it.
Zakai drew the hat side.
You're truly ganged up upon here with the three of us.
Oh, I know.
That is for sure. Last thing on Zakai, can he handle 36 minutes, 35 minutes a night?
I was surprised to look at the box score. Grant and Santi played 36 minutes the other night at Arizona. Yeah, if anybody can play 36 minutes, it's Zakai.
Santi might have been the only guy the other night that didn't have 4 fouls. I think Zakai played 29 minutes, but he had 4 fouls.
With 4 fouls. Yeah,
I think Zakai's a guy that probably grew up playing sun up to sundown,
right?
All through the year. He's the last guy I'd be concerned about. You're putting too heavy load on.
Hubbard, he looks at playing 40 minutes like AP looks at playing 36 holes. Just could fall out of bed and do it.
Depends on what the lunch counter looks like when you make the turn, though, right, AP?
No, nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. Depends on where I'm playing, Hubs. If it's Dead Horse Lake, no. If it's, Seminole, if it's Seminole,
Baltusrol North, Baltusrol South, he's all over it.
He is absolutely all over it. All right, I got to do have one
east
more
west thing, I'm not north south.
I'm not my bad, AP. I don't fly jets.
I want to get to. We got to get to football and recruiting here, but the Euro stuff from Rick. Clearly, he was mad there. Can he control him? I mean, obviously he has to. Is that a big deal, or is that just Rick was just mad in general after the game and decided to lash out on that deal? Because I would imagine it's probably not the first time Euros has heard something like that, right?
I mean, I don't think it's a big deal, but if Euros was a better player, it might be a big deal. But I mean, if Rick benches him and never plays him again, I mean, I don't know that that's a huge blow to this team. I would hazard a guess, Grant, that Rick controls it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, it's great to have attitude, and it's great to be hard nosed, and it's great to bring something to the table like that. But the antics that Rick talks about with Urosh versus the amount of production that Urosh gives you night in and night out, you need to reel it in because it's not worth it, because you get that technical foul early in the game, and that didn't change anything, but that also didn't help anything because he was in foul trouble as soon as the second half started. Jonas Sadu was in foul trouble. Tobey Owaku was in foul trouble. Olivier was in foul trouble. The entire front court was in foul trouble. And Tobey's playing more minutes than you probably want to because Urosh picks up that technical early in the game, and then suddenly he's in foul trouble. So it does change the way the game is played, and it's just not worth it. If you can't control it, then I don't think Rick's going to play you because he can't trust you.
Yeah, he's got plenty of leverage there. I don't think that will be an issue, but clearly he was mad. If at the moment he was mad, and then he was still mad about it post game after that. All right, Tennessee has Austin Peay coming up this week, and then they open conference play against Ole Miss on the 28th down in Oxford, Mississippi, in a 5 o'clock Eastern start time over Christmas break. Another unusual start time for Tennessee to open conference play there. We got full coverage of Tennessee basketball this week, and then obviously as they move into SEC play. Signing day is Wednesday. Austin Price, it's about as anticlimactic it feels like. You think that it's ever going to be. Although Tennessee has a decommit over the weekend and Sylvester Smith, are they going to get home with everybody committed on the board?
I don't know of anybody else that would be a quote flight risk. Literally on Friday, I was talking to somebody over there, and I was talking about how anticlimactic it is, and I said, it's basically you're just waiting on make sure Sylvester Smith's papers get here, and then of course a couple of days later, he tells the staff he's going hunting, and he went hunting, all right, hunting for a new school. Auburn flips him, and I think everybody else is fine. I don't see any kind of other hiccups between now and Wednesday, but it is kind of heck, 2/3 of the class are going through practice this week, and they've been going through practice, and it's very the air's out of the balloon. I don't know how to even describe it. It's just you kind of, I think that's why we all, when we went to do Arian Carter last week over, I think we were kind of like, man, it's kind of fun. Like, there's a little, we got this coach, he's trying to get in, like there's, Tennessee's trying to block it. Like it kind of felt like 1997, not, the way it is currently.
Yeah, it was a deal. I mean, it was a little bit of hey, this is kind of a recruiting story and a recruiting angle. And so it is different as Tennessee's got all of those midtermers in there. We're going to dive into those in just a second. But obviously, no surprise visits this last weekend. Are they done at safety, AP? Are they finished there?
Well, again, we taped this on Monday. A lot can happen between Monday and Tuesday morning when it releases. But unless I think they're done. Say like Tyler Scott's one. I think that Tennessee's going to at least kick the tires with. I think it's down to kind of Tennessee and Auburn. He was at Texas this past weekend. Tennessee hadn't done a whole lot with him lately, and he knows that, because Tennessee thought they were going to keep Sylvester Smith. I don't know why they felt so, had such strong conviction about that. I mean, to me, he was always the most likely candidate for a competent Auburn staff to come in and flip, and
But I mean, they had Heupel in there at the end of last week after the All-Star game. He was quoted at the All-Star game to an Auburn writer about how proud he was to Tennessee. So I mean,
that's when I thought they were past it.
Yeah, I think Tennessee probably thought they were too.
And then when Keith Neighbor put out there that he was there, I was like, nope. As soon as he posted, I was like, oh, that's not going to end well.
All right.
I think otherwise they go to the portal. And I don't think if they go to the portal, I don't think they're going safety at that point. I think they'll go corner. But Tyler Scott's the only prep kid that they would even kick the tires with.
All right, let's talk about portal life. Tennessee had 2 offensive linemen in on Wednesday. Johnny Cornelius from Rhode Island is going to announce his commitment. Grant, you had a chance to catch up with him. He went to Ohio State after he left Tennessee. Any vibe on what he thought of Tennessee and kind of where you think that one might be with Ohio State and the Vols and Nebraska and Oregon, I guess?
Not much of a vibe. I think he did a pretty good job of kind of saying it's going to be a hard decision, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's just such a sped up timeline for him. I mean, he went straight from Knoxville. I said, "Where are you going next?" He said, "Ohio State." I said, "When are you going there?" He said, "I'm going there right now." So I mean, he went straight from Tennessee, a 1-day visit, to Ohio State for a 1-day visit. I don't know how long he was at Oregon or how long he was at Nebraska, or how those compare, but I mean, he said they like his athletic ability, his size. So I think, I don't know, and I believe Glenn Ellerby, AP, correct me if I'm wrong, went up there to see him a couple times at Rhode Island. So it seems like Tennessee is pretty invested on that front. He seems like one of the more popular names in the portal right now.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, Hubs, is like sometimes kids come in and like Elijah Davis then just doesn't pan out and you go separate ways. My big thing is like where's Tennessee feel like they are at with a Johnny, where they feel like they're at with your boy Andre Carrick from Texas.
That's my boy.
I mean, he's your boy, man.
Because he blew me off. He didn't want to talk to me. Is that why he's my boy, AP?
He's your boy.
It's terrible.
Your phone call to me to tell me what he had said.
How did it compare on the Randy Moss scale?
Oh no, that'll never be tied.
Well,
let's put it in the neighborhood.
Let's put it this way. I saw Andre in person as he walked by, and I did get a chance to. I mean, he kind of looked at me like, "Who are you, and why are you flagging me down? Why are you talking to me?" So I did see him in person. The Randy conversation was back in the old days when you were calling on a landline, and I mean there was Sarah at the operator that was taking care of it, ringing down the street on Elm.
Do you get that, Reverend Traub?
But it was no.
Yes,
got that one. But after a while, it would time out if you let it ring long enough, right? I mean, it would just stop ringing. So in the office, everything was, you had a speakerphone, so I wasn't holding the receiver to my ear. And I just called Randy like at lunchtime every day for, I don't know how long it was. And then you just let it ring till the phone stopped ringing. And you just kept doing that every day. And so the time I finally got him, it stopped ringing and I was mad and I called him back. I think I did that 3 times and he answered it on the 3rd time. And that's probably why I deserved the cussing that I got from Randy Moss at that point when he told me he was going to Notre Dame, because I bet the phone had rung in his house about 75 times. He finally decided to answer it. I knew he wasn't coming to Tennessee, so I just wanted that one over with. It was a little relentless. The thing, Rob, that's interesting about transfers is they've all been through this process before. Now, Ajani's different because he was at Rhode Island. No offense to the fine folks at Rhode Island, but his recruitment was not covered. But a guy like Andre Carrick, who went to Texas, I mean, he talked to, he went through the recruiting process. He doesn't want to go through it again publicly. That's the interesting thing about transfer portal life. And as Grant mentioned, it happened so fast for these guys because he was leaving Knoxville, heading to on a visit as well somewhere.
Yeah, and before we move on, Grant and I both want to, on your Randy Moss story, we both hope Jalen LeCue is enjoying the G League. That's
another story.
That's true. That was a pre-sunup wake up. Was that right?
6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. It was bad.
Yeah, 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. No thanks, guys. No thanks. But to your point, yeah, I mean, however, I would think these kids would be, handle it like Teflon. After they've been through it. And not only have they been through the recruiting process, they've been, especially when you've been at a place like Texas or Tennessee or anywhere. You've seen media every single day. You've been at practice. It just would not seem like, and I don't want to pile on the kid. If he wants to keep it private, that's fine.
He was polite.
That's what I mean. I don't mean to pile on the kid, but just to have a guy that has been in this machine, since he was a junior in high school, that's kind of surprising.
The best part of the Johnny thing, I talked to him on Monday, and I kind of give him the same spiel I give most kids about, if it's going to be Tennessee, let's do it ahead of time. That way, when you put the hat on, and he goes, "All right, I got you." I said, "All right, I'll call you tomorrow." He goes, "I'll call you if it's going to be Tennessee." I was like, okay. So if you're asking me where I think he's going, it's probably not here based off that comment. But again, older kids, they can play coy and stuff. So we'll see, later today, heading into tomorrow. But he's not going till 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock Wednesday night.
That's not good for AP's viewership. However, here's the real question. I can't believe we never came at it before. Do you think that AP went to Catherine Price and was like, "Hey, if the answer is going to be yes, just let me know. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it on the down low, but I'm going to come back tomorrow, and then you have an announcement. I won't tell anybody. You can put it on
I
Facebook.
won't crystal ball you, Kevin.
You can put it on Facebook. You can call your mom. But just right now, I'll keep it under wraps, just between me and you.
We're gonna pre-tape your response to this question, and we'll have it ready to go. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about some other transfers because I don't think anybody. Obviously, it's a dead period, Austin. At this point, Tennessee going to crank back up some visit machine work in the first part of January. Looks like maybe we'll see if they do something in the secondary, but where are they at the receiver spot? Because that's the other place they seem to be most active right now.
But before we go any further, I would equate my mother-in-law to Jacob Copeland's mom, who got all pissed and walked off. When he picked up the Florida hat. Anyway, let's stay with receivers. Dante Thornton going to visit in January. He visited Miami this past week.
Are they the biggest threat because of his relationship with Cristobal?
Yeah, I think they're a real threat. Penn State's a real threat too. But Cristobal, let's face it, the money that Miami's throwing around down there, is pretty eye opening. From old Sean Ruiz, who's out there, making his bold predictions on Twitter. And then they want to get Ra Thomas, kid from Kent State, all here in January. Ra was at Auburn this past weekend. Providing none of these kids do anything around Christmas and they actually get to when things open back up on January 4th, I think Tennessee will see several of those receivers visit between the 4th and the 9th. And, at that point, I think Tennessee's taken definitely one, and I wouldn't be shocked if they took two.
What? 2 receivers?
He only plays 3.
In an offense that plays 3. All right. Well, so
if you're one of the 3, you're getting drafted.
That's true. There's no doubt. Devontae Walker from Kent State, AP. Some talk that he said he wants to visit Tennessee, but potentially in January as well. So the question is, are all those guys going to be there, once you get to January? If they are, then Tennessee is certainly going to be hard in the receiver position.
Well, again, it's calculated when you push them to January, and really the only one they pushed was Ra. Everybody else has told them, hey, I'm not doing anything before January. I'm going to take multiple visits in January, and I think that'll be the case. The only one that to me would be a little bit kind of, man, I hope he makes it there is Ra. And that's because he was just at Auburn. And again, Auburn's throwing around money in the portal. And so I'll be interested to kind of see if he makes it to January. I think Tennessee's got a real shot there. I think, ultimately, though, you're going to see that 4th through the 9th window will be pretty active with Tennessee, whether it be the receivers or, the South Carolina running back, Marshawn Lloyd, probably a couple others that Tennessee takes a hard look at other positions during that time. And so, I still think Tennessee's, likely to attack the defensive side of the ball at some point and, in the transfer portal. And then, offensively, I think it's receiver and then only Lloyd. If Lloyd goes, they'll say Southern Cal, Georgia, a couple of the other teams that have contacted him. If he goes somewhere else, I don't think Tennessee's taking another running back.
All right. Tennessee has lost another player to the portal, Jordan Phillips.
Yep.
After a tackle in 3 games played in the season at Tennessee, has elected to enter the portal. They are welcoming in the 2 transfer commitments that they have to the practice field. So right now, Rob Lewis, almost 22% of the roster, the scholarship roster, on the practice field for a bowl game is newcomers who are ineligible to play in the bowl game.
Yeah, that's crazy. And Hubbard, you asked,
isn't it crazy?
It is crazy. I mean, I thought you asked Coach Heupel a good question the other day. Like, how much do you balance, incorporating these guys and the newcomers into what you're doing, and how much is just all about getting ready to play Clemson? And it would seem like it's all about getting ready to play Clemson until you start throwing the numbers that you're talking about. 22%, of your guys that are at practice. I mean, if you're just getting ready to play Clemson, they're just standing around kind of and watching, for 90 minutes. But I mean, it really is all about getting ready to play the next game. But I still think there's value in having those kids there, just to like like Josh answered you the other day. They find out what our culture is, they find out what the expectations are, what the standards are. But I mean, we've had midtermers before, but it's never been like you just said, over 20% of your roster in December. Do you think they've ever been close?
No. I told Hubs last night when we were doing Rocky Top, or 2 nights ago when we were doing Rocky Top Rewind. I said, the truth of the matter is, when you look at Tennessee's freshmen that played this year, the ones that played the most, Dylan Sampson, Josh Josephs, didn't get it till summertime. Now, with that said, I do think that all of these, 15 are kind of like that newborn colt that's kind of got the legs and it's all over the place trying to learn how to walk. Instead of that being the case in March, it's the case in December. They're going to get, double-digit practices in before they ever get to spring practice, which I think allows them to be walking at spring practice instead of kind of fumbling all over themselves trying to figure it out. I think with this class and the fact that they're getting in, like what Jordan Phillips and those kids, he's gone. Justin Williams-Thomas, 2 kids that were early enrollees last year, they're both gone. They got 3 practices in last year.
I think they got 3.
But this is going to be more substantial because they get to go to the bowl. You get to be around the teammates. They get to be around team events. You get to practice at the bowl, get to be on the sideline. I think that this allows them to – I'm not saying it puts them on the field right away, but I think it allows them to get a quicker grasp of everything much sooner.
Yeah, we'll see how – I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think that, doing it for 3 days is you don't get a whole lot out of that at all, other than for coaches, that just means you don't have to worry about those guys the last weekend in recruiting. Essentially, is what it boils down to. But if you're going to get 2 weeks out of it, then I think you get more moving forward. Now, I don't know that this trend's going to continue, Grant. When you go to expanded playoffs and you got 12 teams in the playoff, I don't know if Josh Heupel's answer is as simple as the answer he gave me in the press conference to suggest, hey, it's all good. I mean, if you're playing in a playoff, it's a different vibe around your team, which is why you're not seeing, Ohio State and Georgia having a bunch of guys hanging around for bowl practice. So this may be a short-lived deal for a lot of guys if you're talking about your team being in the playoffs.
It's a completely different tone. I mean, and for Tennessee's got to be way more excited to be in this Orange Bowl than Clemson does, just for the optics of an 11-win season and what that would mean. 10-win season is great, but getting to 11 for Josh Heupel in year 2 would be something else. But if it's a 12-team playoff and you've got multiple rounds that you're looking to play ahead of you, it's definitely more serious business, I guess. Not that they're not taking this seriously, but just a different tone, a different amount of work that you got to get in. I mean, you're not focusing on individual work with Nico if you're preparing for a quarterfinal or whatever it would be in a playoff game. So I think it would certainly be a different tone, a different feel to it. Almost like it's just an extension of the regular season.
Rob, you had Nico as the next Peyton Manning. I think 3 podcasts ago. You've had a chance to see him throw the ball now. But where are you putting Nico?
I definitely did not have him as the next Peyton Manning.
I know. I'm just kidding.
I know you don't. But the ball again. We've seen him for one practice. The ball jumps out of his hand. I mean, I'm just going to say. I mean, AP, you've seen him live a couple of times. I mean, his arm kind of looks like a spaghetti noodle, but I mean, it's live. I mean, it's
quick release too.
It's elastic. I mean, if you just, and again, we've seen him throw routes on air to receivers and their defensive backs. I mean, it springs out of his hand, and it looks like his arm's a rubber band.
Yeah, it certainly is fun. I'm curious to see what the tight end transfer Castles looks like when we get a chance to see him at some point. Austin, because I think that's a guy that has to make a big impact. I want to see
Monday at Miami.
Yeah, I want a chance when we get a chance to see him Monday in Miami, to see what he can do and where it is, because I think that's as important of a get for Tennessee in the portal as anybody, regardless of who they get in January. I think that's so important because of where they are depth-wise at the tight end position. So we'll get a chance to see him. We'll get coverage from Miami coming up on the 26th. We've got plenty of basketball coverage as well. Wednesday is signing day. Grant, I used to have a little board that I did every week, and I don't even have to upgrade it to one with one of those fancy sticky buttons on it anymore because everybody's already committed and already in. So we will have coverage of signing day and what will be a very quick signing day for the volunteers.
Hubbard, nobody's going to be on the phone with the secretary at Robert Beecham's high school.
No,
Just
nobody's going to be there. That I had Jeremy Crabtree. I know this is a stunning development because my email is still AOL, but I had Jeremy Crabtree in the gym at Robert Meacham's on Instant Messenger, waiting to see what he would announce when he announced it. Back when Jeremy was at Rivals, he's at On3 now with us, and so he and I always share a laugh about that story because Oklahoma was convinced it was Oklahoma.
Hubbard kept the secret.
The response
kept the secret.
The response that it was Tennessee from Jeremy was one for the ages for sure, because he did not see it coming at all. All right, those are signing day fun stories. This should be a light signing day, but we'll have it all covered for you at Volquest.com. That's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. He is Grant Ramey, Rob Lewis, and Austin Price. I'm Brent Hubbs. Again, be sure to like this on YouTube. Be sure to join us and check us out at Volquest.com. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody.